Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, David Hogg, former Democratic National Committee Vice Chair and President of Leaders We Deserve, will be with us to give us an inside look at the debt and dysfunction at the DNC. And later in the show, Biplob Kumar will join us to discuss India's Gen Z protest movement bringing Modi to heel. Also on the program, Republicans have hauled Dr. Anthony Fauci in for a Senate hearing where he pled the fifth and got berated. Trump's Iran war continues to spiral. Iran launched missiles at a U.S. base in Jordan, the first time since Trump backed off over the weekend. Europe expresses strong disinterest in heeding the U.S.'s call to help patrol the Strait of Hormuz. You're back to freedom fries. Trump met with Netanyahu and Zelensky after Lindsey Graham's funeral yesterday. Government data reveals that prices for food purchased for your home have risen by 33% since 2019. That is not the typical rate of increase keeping up with inflation. A vote on Todd Blanche's Attorney General nomination may be postponed. Republicans are unsure if they have the votes due to, that anti-weaponization slush fund settlement agreement that they had to walk back. The Senate did vote to confirm Jay Clayton as DNI, however. Federal disclosures show that data center lobbyists have more than doubled since this time last year. Wonder why that is. Trump implements a new rule that could send hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers directly into deportation proceedings without any due process. There are around 1.4 million pending asylum seekers in this country. This would impact around a third. Ohio's Republican governor calls Trump's deportations of Haitian migrants a mistake, citing local businesses upset about their workforce being decimated. And lastly, the administration also is ending billions of dollars in subsidies that help stabilize premiums for Medicare drug plans. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Hump Day. Hello. Sam will be back on Friday. We've got a great show for you tomorrow. Going to preview that. An in-studio guest that's going to just knock your socks off. Hopefully, they don't cancel at the last minute. Knock on wood.
Hopefully, you like sisters of recently deceased senators.
Yeah. What?
Darlene.
Oh.
Darlene, get your honey in here.
Darlene. I can't believe that her name is Darlene. I mean, straight out of Steel Magnolias. You may notice that the quality of my camera looks good today, and it's because Matt Leck might be a genius. Let's all give a round of applause for Matt Leck, who seems to have figured out the situation with the cameras. Golf clap, golf clap.
Yeah, let us know how we're looking and sounding today in the chat. Hopefully there's no downstream effects that I haven't thought through yet of update to the tech that I did last night. But yeah, it should be a little bit clearer, and we shouldn't have any drops in, say, video quality of people that are in studio with us.
Yes.
Like Emma, like the hosts.
Right, which is a bit important. Kind of important. Thanks to Matt for fixing that. Let's start here. So, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the former head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, who became the villain of the Republicans and of conservatives and the Maha movement during the COVID-19 pandemic because he was in the administration trying to do basic public health. And Republicans were jumping on the anti-vax train, and as well were mostly concerned with the idea that workers wouldn't be putting their health on the line to support business owners and capitalism. And so they made it into a culture war issue that a lot of more conspiratorial people have jumped onto. And it was fertile ground because our public health system is so poor that people only find a feeling of agency and control in their essentially individualized health choices, which can range from not taking certain supplements, taking certain vitamins, looking things up on the internet to make your child or you healthier, which can lead you down rabbit holes. And it can also lead you to being essentially an anti-vaxxer.
It turned what should have been a moment for Americans to collectively come together on this government's responsibility towards everyone's health, just publicly, and it turned it into one of distrust of government and conspiracizing. Which
they love. Hey,
absolutely. There's no demand for like Pfizer or any of these companies to make their these vaccines widely available. Instead, treat them like intellectual property.
Exactly. And they would love the idea that any kind of understanding that our health is interconnected and that we should have a public healthcare system is dispersed and made less relevant by conspiracism, because then you can't have a mass mobilization for a movement like Medicare for All, for example, and that's what we need to be combating. From the start of this hearing, Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment. Here is him doing so. Senator Rand Paul heads the committee where he's testifying, the U.S. Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, because naturally this is all based on their obsession with blaming China for the pandemic, as opposed to, say, like it being worsened in this country because the president of the United States said it may be a good idea to inject bleach into your body. But here is the beginning of these opening statements when Fauci pleads the Fifth.
This video, I skipped the first minute of this is him going through his resume and his whole career, and it picks up to where he's now getting to Rand Paul.
However, given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so, because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
We will now
Rand Paul then goes on to ask him a bunch of questions. Fauci saved probably thousands of lives, if not millions of lives. Of the people targeted in Trump 2.0 by this administration, he's one of the most sympathetic. Like, you know, I'm not somebody that thinks James Comey is deserving of our our sympathy, but Fauci was a lifelong public servant. And, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, there are things that you get wrong. Like, we didn't know initially how it was transmitted. Things like gloves were not necessary. And then we knew the true nature of the virus as it came to be. And so the guidance wasn't on point when you look at it now, years later. But what it evolved with the information that we received about COVID-19. And when you compare it to this, you remember Peter Navarro? This is the guy that started off as a trade advisor to Trump, and then he suddenly took on this huge role in COVID in early 2020. But this was the primary advocate for hydroxychloroquine in the administration. And he and Fauci were battling back and forth. When I say that Fauci saved thousands, if not millions of lives, I mean that Trump could have been listening to a guy like this who still is quadrupling down on hydroxychloroquine in the year of our Lord 2026.
All this stuff with science, Jasmine, I want to emphasize, tells us now works. He was saying didn't work. I had 1 million doses of hydroxychloroquine in warehouses
sure
as
you
the
did.
defense policy coordinator for the DPA that I was trying to distribute to hospitals, and he got the FDA to stop me from doing that. Thousands of people could be here in this country right now alive if I had been able to distribute that. Take that to the bank. That's what the science says.
Okay, I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot about that.
Okay, saying that on C-SPAN, what do you mean moving on from that? Hydroxychloroquine, there have been large-scale, randomized studies that looked into this very thing. Do you think that the big pharma that they rail against that also produces hydroxychloroquine wouldn't have been really excited to sell this product, that they didn't even need to spend all of this money on research and development for an mRNA vaccine, that they could have just handed out hydroxychloroquine and people could have taken it prophylactically, and they could have made hand over fist without that other investment. And they could have got people
back to work, which is the real
Exactly.
imperative.
That's why they were pushing hydroxychloroquine at the time, saying you can take this as a preventative measure. And then they did these large-scale trials and found that it did not have any efficacy. And the FDA had to backtrack on that at this point.
Yeah, and all the anti-vaxxers moved on to ivermectin. We're even talking about hydroxychloroquine anymore. That's the old version.
Well, Navarro feels wronged, feels like he could have been the savior. And isn't that what's important here, Matt?
And again, that's the framing, right? It's a government bureaucrat that got in the way of the life-saving pharmaceutical product that could have saved you if the bureaucrat just allowed it. But really, this was about getting people back to work as fast as possible. And these sorts of fake ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine weren't actually suitable to that purpose.
And we should put this all in the context that these folks are back in power. They feel emboldened. And we're feeling the ramifications of the Trump administration's approach to public health and disease. Currently, we are in the midst of two major outbreaks in the United States. This is the cyclospora outbreak that you're hearing about on the news a lot, the diarrhea parasite, essentially. It's been linked to iceberg lettuce, and there have been now at least 11,000 confirmed or suspected cases in the country. 40 states are reporting it, so an overwhelming majority. And it can result in hospitalization for that kind of diarrhea. It's a really serious issue. And there's this program within the CDC called FoodNet. When Trump came in with Doge and all of that, and this new administration, FoodNet, which was a program under the CDC that partnered with state health departments to track some of this stuff, scaled back its mandate, essentially, to look at pathogens. There were 8 pathogens that FoodNet was tracking with these state health departments. and they reduced that to just 2. So it's only E. coli and salmonella, meaning cyclospora should have been and would have been, if Trump just kept this in place, being monitored by FoodNet. They made it voluntary. And then you have this. This is reporting from Wired about the cyclospora lab. If we could put this up here. As cases of the diarrhea-causing parasite cyclospora rise across the U.S., former employees of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say the country's response is being severely hampered by personnel cuts at the agency. Amid mass government layoffs last year implemented by President Donald Trump and his so-called Department of Government Efficiency, the CDC lab that responds to outbreaks of the parasite cyclospora was downsized from 11 people to just 3, according to Joel Barrett, a molecular parasitologist and associate professor at Emory University School of Medicine who previously led the team. So you see those are 2 reductions that I just mentioned. They reduced the guidance in terms of pathogens that were monitored in conjunction with state health departments, and then they also just drastically reduced the workforce that was responsible for these kinds of outbreaks, and specifically for cyclospora. It was downsized from 11 people to just 3. Based on simple math, these outbreak responses, which required rapid, timely responses, are going to be greatly diminished. If we could just put this back up on the screen here. He tells Wired. Cyclospora is just one piece. It's making the news right now, but there are other more dangerous pathogens than cyclospora. He mentions about how he left the CDC voluntarily because of the purges and, maintaining your benefits. Wired reported in October that the CDC reduced its total workforce by about 3,000 employees, roughly a quarter of the agency since January 2025. That number includes layoffs as well as those who accepted the Trump administration's buyout program. The estimate was compiled by the American Federation of Government Employees Local 2883, which represents CDC workers. And there's also, there's also this Ebola outbreak, right? Like Sam has been debated Jillian Michaels on the cuts to USAID and those impacts. But like in the DRC right now, there's an outbreak there of Ebola that we have to monitor. And then we turn to measles, because the U.S. has already lapped the previous record since 2000, or since it was essentially measles was declared eliminated from the United States. 2025 was a record for measles cases, and right now we're already beating that record in the year 2026. Here's Dr. Peter Hotez speaking to CNN about what the status of measles cases are in the United States and how the U.S. has lost its elimination status, which it declared in 2000, essentially saying that measles has been eliminated from the United States. And so, like, international public health groups have to downgrade the United States because of how many measles cases there are.
Winning.
Basically, measles is back. We've lost our elimination status. And that is the first domino to fall, because pertussis, whooping cough, is falling right behind. Those numbers are also huge in terms of coming back. And of course, the worry is that polio could return. Generally, it's maybe 100 cases or so a year. Then last year, we hit over 2,000 for the first time in decades. And now we're already at that just halfway through the year. It's happening for the simple reason that not enough parents are vaccinating their kids. They're getting the wrong message that measles is not a bad illness. They forget how that 10-20% of kids require hospitalization with measles. We've had 2 measles deaths last year among perfectly well kids who, unfortunately, the parents made the decision not to vaccinate them.
So measles at risk of losing its elimination status here in the United States. What's the significance of that?
It means that hospitalizations are going to be a new normal for measles. And it's going to mean that parents, who are responsible are going to have to rethink the safety of their kids in schools. And I'm also worried about parents, especially new parents with kids, with infants not yet old enough to be vaccinated. You know, what do you do with a 5-month-old, a 6-month-old who's still 6 months away from getting a measles for their first dose of MMR vaccine?
It's horrifying. So, and this is kind of promulgating in communities where there are low vaccination rates, perhaps some vaccine skepticism, scientific skepticism, and measles is deadly. Like,
when he says they're getting the wrong message about measles, RFK Jr. famously said that when he had measles, it was a great weekend of watching TV, and all you need is chicken soup and vitamin A.
Jeez. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It kills children. Children are dying. And even if they don't die from it, it impacts children's immune system for the rest of their lives. Measles. It's incredibly contagious and dangerous. But we want to play around with this now.
3 kids died last year.
This war on public health here needs to be met with a response that transforms our public health care system so that these kinds of charlatans are not able to make a buck out of this. I mean, there's a whole industry right now that's getting very rich that RFK and his acolytes are connected to, of alternative medicine, with that is exploiting people who desperately want some sort of control over their healthcare. Like, the anxiety that moms feel about what's going into their kids' bodies is something that the Democrats should not ignore. It's a very real thing. But it's not because, you know, you're not just taking the right vitamins or whatever, or prophylactic hydroxychloroquine. It's because nobody can afford to go see a doctor, and so they have to fill the gaps with what they're looking up on Google or hearing from RFK Jr. And this impacts the rest of us.
I have a shitload of anxieties about medicines, but what appeases it is more regulation.
Right.
Not less.
And what also probably appeases it or makes it easier for you is the fact that you you have healthcare through the VA, right? Like,
yes.
And so it takes that anxiety away about emergencies that can result in, you know, poor decision making without the proper information that's available to people. It's not just an information issue. You know, I really do wish that the Democrats nationally would would make it less about how people need to be educated on this issue. This is systemic. The education isn't going to take, the adhesive isn't going to take if people aren't primed for it.
You need to be empowered through the state.
Right.
On this stuff, yeah.
And what's ironic about all of this is that's what true freedom about your healthcare would be. Mm-hmm. To not worry about going into medical debt that could destroy all of your savings if you have one adverse health event.
Just get some sun on your taint.
Right. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a while.
I know. That's
behind on my taint.
That's why you've been getting the sniffles. Not enough taint tanning. What's the women's equivalent of that? I guess it doesn't really matter.
They don't look into women's.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Get around to that in about 40 years.
Yeah. Let's not worry about
ED and baldness.
Women's health care. Let's do a trial with 15 different women or 15 different men to study, you know, periods or something. In a moment, you will hear our conversation with David Hogg, recorded that an hour or two ago. Great conversation about his inside knowledge about the DNC's dysfunction. But first, a word from one of our favorite sponsors. Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers, including myself, including Sam Seder? They have all the plants that your home needs or your yard, including fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and house plants, all grown with care and guaranteed to arrive healthy. It's like your local nursery, but anywhere you live, with more plants than you'll find anywhere. And unlike your local nursery, it ships right to your door, so you don't have to go to the nursery and pick it up there, and maybe you don't have a car and walk home in the city like I do. It gets delivered right to your door. And you also don't have to do the guesswork that would be included that would be a part of going to somewhere, in your area where they may not have exactly what you're looking for. Because Fast Growing Trees helps you find options that actually work for your climate, space, and lifestyle. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Just click order, grow, and get healthy, thriving plants delivered to your door. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee promises that your plants arrive happy and healthy. No green thumb required, just quality plants that you can count on. Plus, get ongoing support from trained plant experts who can help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to take care of them every step of the way. And that was what was helpful for me too, because I have to get a house plant that isn't going to be toxic to the cats. Want to make sure that it can be left alone for a while, and I don't have to worry about it because I'm not great with that stuff. I'm not somebody with a green thumb. But Fast Growing Trees takes out all of those questions. Right now, they have great deals on planting essentials, up to half off on select plants, and our audience gets 20% off your first purchase when using the code MAJORITY at checkout. That's an additional 20% off better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code MAJORITY at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code MAJORITY. Now is the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use MAJORITY to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. We will put a link down below in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. Get 20% off your first purchase, fastgrowingtrees.com/majority. Quick break, and when we come back, you'll hear my conversation with David Hogg. We are back, and we are joined now by David Hogg, former Democratic National Committee Vice Chair and President of Leaders We Deserve. David, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Of course. Happy to have you on. And I want to dive into the dysfunction at the DNC and the reporting on that. But before we do that, I think it might be helpful for people to get a refresher on what the Democratic National Committee even is, right? Like, what is the DNC compared to, say, the DSCC, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, currently headed by Kirsten Gillibrand, or the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, as well? What's the DNC's specific function?
Well, I'm really glad that you asked this question, because I think there's plenty of fair criticisms of the DNC, but I actually think a lot of people bundle all of those groups together. So it's a great question to ask. To start out, you have the DNC that really is the presidential campaign in waiting. They also help manage state and territorial Democratic parties. And they help to obviously have the platform of the Democratic Party, the rules of the presidential debate schedule, and super importantly and relevantly, the presidential primary. And then you have them give some money, obviously, to state parties. Occasionally, they'll give it to other committees like the DCCC or the DSCC, like you mentioned. The DCCC's number one goal is winning back a House majority for Democrats. So they're the group that many House Democrats will pay dues into on the order of several $100,000 to millions of dollars to help win back the House majority. And then you have the DSCC, which is just like the DCCC, but for winning back a Senate majority for Democrats, where they will work directly. Both the DCCC and the DSCC work directly with candidates, talking to them, advising them, and not always, but most of the time are investing in red to blue races that are critical to us flipping key states and key House districts in order to win back those majorities. So if you want to think about it this way, the DNC is really around, it's just like in some ways the DTRIP or the DSCC, but for the presidential. They're supposed to be the campaign in waiting, and then you have the other committees that focus on the House and Senate.
Although I will say, to be fair, as you know, you accurately lay out all of the differences. They are still all three right now plagued by the same kind of malaise, where voters don't have trust in any of these institutions within the Democratic Party, and individual candidates are doing well in terms of fundraising with small dollar contributors, but the candidates that the DSCC and the DCCC have endorsed have not had a hit rate like they had previously. The more populist candidates are challenging them effectively. And people seem to have more trust in individual Democrats than they do in any of the democratic institutions.
I mean, to be honest with you, can you really blame them after they...
I'm not blaming them at all. Yeah, right.
After we saw a horrific presidential election where we elected Donald Trump for the second time, and the establishment's response was, at least on the DNC's front, that they're going to do an autopsy, that then they couldn't even include any of the actual issues that decided the election. And then they couldn't even include a conclusion. People are tired of being told, don't worry, we're going to put a different color of lipstick on the pig this time, and that's going to win back voters instead of actually addressing the pig, if you will.
Right. Can you talk about that? I mean, that we covered this maybe a month or so ago. Ken Martin, the embattled current leader of the Democratic National Committee, was on Pod Save America and was repeatedly questioned by Jon Favreau about his leadership. And the autopsy that was supposed to come out about how the Democrats lost once again to Donald Trump, eventually they released it, and it seemed to raise more questions than answers. What happened there, David?
Well, to be honest with you, I can only speculate as to what happened because I was at the DNC for a couple of months, and then I obviously started talking about the necessity of bringing in fresh blood, which then resulted in them, I would argue, conveniently finding an issue with the election.
Kicking out fresh blood because you suggested fresh blood? That makes sense.
Pretty much. Anyways, I think what happened is that Ken Martin ran for DNC chair because for people that, I think there's a lot of people that don't understand how that process works either. There's 450 DNC members that are from different state parties, state party chairs, etc., that vote on who the DNC chair is. And when Ken was running for that position, one of the main things he ran on was releasing an autopsy that would hopefully address some of the reasons why people are increasingly not interested in supporting these institutional groups like the DNC to offer any form of accountability. So at the DNC in our first meeting, a major part of what we were talking about was what is going to go into this autopsy. And I remember bringing up in this meeting and saying, I know a lot of, and this was with all the officers, including Ken, where I said, I know a lot of you guys probably don't want to talk about this, but if you're going to talk about why we lost young voters, you have to talk about Gaza. You have to talk about inflation. And I remember on the Gaza part in particular, to my surprise, the officers were like, yeah, no. We absolutely do want to talk about that. We need to talk about that. It's really important and we shouldn't shy away from it. And then Ken's friend, Paul Revere, who he hired to do this job, I think what happened is he was doing such a terrible job of it that Ken just told him, stop, this isn't working. It's not worth your time. Just stop working on it entirely. And then Ken was pressured on doing the thing that he actually ran on doing, which was releasing the autopsy. And then it ended up being released where none of the issues that actually decided the election were talked about, whether it was Gaza, inflation, or Joe Biden's age. It was just a bunch of internal mechanics and zero conversation around the issues. And also, it couldn't even include a conclusion to begin with. And I think that's what really happened there. And it's emblematic of broader challenges that Ken has had in his leadership of the institution. We're now at a position where the RNC has over $100 million on hand, and the DNC has $2 million in debt 18 months into Ken's term. Your job as a chair of the DNC is to raise money. And now we're seeing not only can he not raise money, and he's been able to continue to not raise money, he's also throwing his phone at staff, which is certainly not going to help morale. And ultimately, what we need to focus on is what are we actually doing to move forward? Because I think part of what's happening here is a lot of these institutions have focused on just purely looking at fundraising. That's all that really matters to them a lot of the time is for candidates, like who they take seriously, who can raise money. And sometimes that can be a good indicator, but it doesn't really take into account candidate quality. I think a lot of the time we could win races if we had higher quality candidates, even if they didn't come from backgrounds where they had tons of wealthy friends that they could raise money from, if they actually presented a vision that people actually believe in. Because imagine if we didn't have to spend nearly as much money gaslighting voters with corporate PAC money that were there for their interests, and instead actually were there for their interests.
It's a novel concept, David, and I want to talk about the debt that the DNC is in that you spoke about there, comparing it as well to the Republican war chest. But I just want to ask you a follow-up about this autopsy. That's new information to me, essentially, that it it read as incomplete, and that's because it was incomplete. But Martin went on Pod Save America and claimed that the report wasn't even commissioned and that it was done for free, for example. Like, that was what the implication was, if I'm remembering correctly. Is that the case?
Well, there was a report that they wrote that they did release, and you can go out there and read it. There is literally, it's annotated as well, and you can see there is not even a conclusion that's included in it. And when it came out, Ken was like, this, I'm not really proud of this, but here you go. I'm going to put it out there because everybody's telling me that I actually need to come through on the promise that I ran on doing in the first place, God forbid, and act like it's some huge problem when it's like, Ken, you did this to yourself. You put yourself in this position. You ran on releasing an autopsy that nobody forced you to do, but this was the main thing that you ran on, and you haven't been able to do it. And then he released it, and it didn't even include a conclusion. People can go out there and read it. It's yes. Freely available.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me that you would begin this and attempt at a fact-finding mission to understand how we got to this moment and then abandon it because, I don't know, the facts are a little bit inconvenient for what leadership wants out there. This is not, you have to be able to look at the game tape from the loss from last week, or you're not going to be able to adjust in the future. This is just basic politics stuff. But the fact that their resources are so strained, I wanted to ask you about that more because, back in the 08 days, right, there was a lot of criticism about Obama and Obama for America, his organization that didn't really, after he won in the 2008 election, fold the campaign infrastructure into the DNC. He had his kind of own separate entity that a lot of critics said was sapping resources away from the Democratic National Committee, and that it was very focused and around kind of Obama and his cadre of consultants. And, I remember that Hillary Clinton in 2016 was in part paying the DNC's bills as well. Like, they were in financial straits in 2016. How much of this, and this also contributed to the weakening of state parties across the country, how much of this is still in the shadow of, Obama for America, the party's inability on a national level to raise this money?
To be honest with you, there are many people inside of the DNC that will say exactly what you just said and blame everything on Obama and say he's the reason why the DNC is in this position in the first place. Like, that is over a decade ago at this point. Even if we were saying, like that was still a problem going all the way up to 2016, that's over a decade ago. This is a problem that does not, regardless of how many problems that created for the DNC, Obama has not been president since 2016. It's been a decade, and that should not result in them having $2 million in debt. Any basic level of competence would result in them not being in this position that they are in right now. And I think what the bigger problem is, and why, I think it's important to think about, well, why did Obama feel it was necessary to organize outside of the DNC's infrastructure and outside of state parties? Let's remember, he ran in some ways as an anti-establishment candidate, right? And these institutions don't really want to change. They want to keep everything as similar as possible to keep the same people in their positions of power, even if it is collectively detrimental to the future of those institutions. And I think, I would presume when Obama saw that, granted I was 8 years old in 2008, so take this as a grain of salt, that when he saw that, he thought, you know what, instead of trying to go and clear house and do all the dealing with all the DNC members and everything like that, we're just going to go and build our own thing. And this is the problem with institutions that are 178 years old. Naturally, they do not really want to change. And there's a lot of incentives internally to try to keep them the same, even if it is collectively detrimental. And that's the bigger problem in DC. We have a system where there is literally hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on the line that is predicated on the idea of the political, consultant industrial complex of keeping everything the same so that people can keep taking corporate money, keep getting rich as consultants off their TV buys and everything like that, instead of actually addressing why do we need to spend so much money on these campaigns to begin with? And the answer to that is because we have to spend a lot of money gaslighting people as a party because increasingly we are not voting in their interests. And I've had conversations like this with people inside of the establishment before where I've said, they've had issues with our candidates at Leaders We Deserve because they reject corporate PAC money. And they say, well, you don't understand. Like, sometimes candidates just need to take that corporate PAC money. And my response to that is, don't you think maybe if we didn't vote for such bad policies and we were able to actually say what we truly believed in, regardless of what these special interests think, that maybe we wouldn't need as much money to gaslight the American people to believe that we're for them and that their lives are increasingly getting better when every single statistic shows us that that is not the case?
Yeah, there's so much there. One, you mentioned, this corporate PAC money too. There's a question also of how like the Democrats decide to deploy resources in primaries to keep the left out and the Republicans sit on their war chests, and we'll get to that in a second. But you touched on something that I have been railing about for months at this point, which is the consultant class being overrepresented in our press to go after campaigns that have an infrastructure that is anathema to their ability to make money, where they are, it's a canvassing type campaign. It's a campaign that's built on volunteer work. It's campaigns that aren't taking corporate PAC money, that don't have the ability, to commission these consultants, and they don't get their big digital and TV commissions, right? Where that is where they make their money. Can you shed some light on the infrastructure of consulting within the Democratic Party and why, say, like an Abdul al-Sayed campaign or, other campaigns that are more focused on grassroots organizing have caused them to kind of freak out, and they go on cable news and I'm like, this person's a consultant and they're not disclosing that they're crapping all over this leftist campaign, which would be, if this kind of campaigning took over the party, they would be made irrelevant, would they not, David?
Well, I think there's always going to be some role, so long as we don't have substantial campaign finance reform, and even in the world that we do, there will be some level of consultants that are involved just because of the natural incentives that are created by campaigns where they're very boom and bust, where people are then, it's a rough life cycle and I think it's the problem, frankly, that the Democratic Party should work on in the long term of how do we build sustainable infrastructure so that people are not burning themselves out working on these campaigns and then working for 9 months and then not having a job for 6 to 9 months after that and going through that cycle, because you create an incentive where people naturally are just going to want to become part of that consultancy system once they get a certain level of seniority. And that advice can be useful. But I think the bigger problem is, especially lower on the ballot, when candidates are taken advantage of and they don't know that because it's their first time running, because our party doesn't provide the infrastructure to them to say, hey, here's standard rates of like what is generally reasonable for a consultant to be paid if you're going to hire somebody that's not, for example, and this is part of why what we do at Leaders We Deserve is so important. I like to call ourselves like anti-consultants in some ways, in that we both give you advice and we will give you money. And we're not incentivized to tell you to keep spending money on your campaign or keep spending money on TV ads if your campaign is going nowhere, because we're investing a substantial amount. And that enables us to be able to tell candidates, like one of them who called us recently, not one that we're working with, but one that we're considering working with next election cycle, who's just getting set up. He said, hey, there's this consultant who called me that wants to charge me like a commission of 40% of all the money that I raise. That's pretty unreasonable, right? And we were able to say, yeah, don't sign that contract. Whereas with other consultants, they may just be like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. I'm going to make my cut and it doesn't really matter, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes total sense. It's also just, I'm just putting a fine point on that. The way that somebody can campaign can literally make a consultant less money, right? That's just we just hammering that. I think is important, because it's people can have some media literacy when they're hearing a talking head say something, very critical of a left-wing campaign, and then you realize what the underlying infrastructure is. So I appreciate you fleshing that out a bit. Let's get back to the debt here. The DNC's $2 million in debt. Earlier this week, Notice reported that the Democratic National Committee was forced to put its physical headquarters up as collateral because they needed a $15 million line of credit so that they could work on investing in the elections. And that means that they are $2 million in debt, in addition to the New York Times piece that showed Ken Martin throwing his phone in a fit of anger, his belief that he's a certain dead man walking within the organization. Just talk a bit about the debt and the dysfunction generally, which has spilled over into the press recently.
I mean, it's an incredibly dysfunctional organization, and the fact that we're having to put the building up as collateral is not a product just of the overall environment, right? It's important to remember Republicans are not popular right now. It's not like everybody loves them, and that's why people are not giving money to the DNC or other parts of the Democratic establishment. It's because the Democratic establishment lacks two things more than anything else: courage and a vision for what to do. That is anything other than saying, well, we're not Republicans. We've done that for the past 10 years. We got to show people who we actually are. And I think the problem is, in order for us to actually be able to secure a majority, it's going to require our political party to embrace candidates that don't make donors happy a lot of the time, or don't make special interests happy, that they are not fans of, that those consultants are directly, their livelihoods are directly threatened by if they're not able to raise as much campaign cash for these candidates, like Zoran, for example, where I've seen this up close and personal, where I saw major donors go out there and say to us who had supported us previously, we need to go and win young people back, right? And then we go and support Zoran. We spend $300,000 supporting him in his primary, and I get a call from that same major donor that's like, yeah, I'm not going to give you, this 6 figures because I don't agree with your candidates anymore, even though Zoran got 3 times the voter turnout of 18 to 24-year-olds. But the reason I was able to tell that donor to take a hike is because 80% of our money at Leaders We Deserve comes from people that give less than $1,000 to the organization. That enables us to be able to put our principles first. And it's because we have that grassroots support, because we have a vision for the future of this party. And what Democrats are doing over and over again is engaging in a race to the bottom, where they hope that Republicans screw over the American people so much that people come back to us begging for any alternative. That's not leadership. That's a disaster. That's what we're doing right now. It's a race to the bottom, and we need a real vision for the future of this country. And thankfully, while the establishment is in debt, at Leaders We Deserve, we're in the black, and the progressive movement is in the black. We are winning. We are increasingly winning over and over and over again. And I think that's why so many of these consultants and other people are freaking out, is because they know the gig is up. We have real infrastructure. This isn't 2016, right? Where it's only just Bernie Sanders movement. We have shows like yours. We have new media. We have new candidates. We have a generation that has been inspired by Bernie Sanders, that has been inspired by a lot of progressive leaders that are rising up and are now old enough to run for office and say, you know what, we're not going to continue doing things the same way anymore. And the establishment has been so addicted to enabling geriatric leaders and continuing to have them there for decades that they're literally dying in power. And they don't know what to do about it, because that vacuum is being filled by progressive leaders.
Just a few more questions before I let you go, David. What's his name? Carville, right? James Carville, your old friend, came out and said that you should lead the DNC, which is quite astonishing given the fact that you guys have sparred
quite a lot.
What do you make of that? I mean, even Carville's recognizing that there needs to be a change, huh?
I mean, Emma, think about it this way. Let me put it a different way. Carville, less than a year ago, was calling me a twerp for engaging in primaries and challenging people that are dying in power and asleep at the wheel Democrats.
I'm sure that really hit you in the heart. Twerp, that's just absolutely devastating.
Yeah, it really was crushing. But less than a year later, the DNC is such a mess that he's saying that I should be the person leading it. And there are a lot of things that James Carville and I disagree on, including the idea that I should be chair of the DNC. I do not think that I should be. And also, I think that it's pretty clear what the members of the DNC think of me, and what, how they don't really want to hear what I have to say. I tried to change it from within, and now we're doing it on the outside with Leaders We Deserve to help elect that next generation. But the fact that James Carville was able to go from twerp to saying somebody who was a twerp should now be the chair of the DNC in less than a year is a testament to how bad things are right now.
Yeah, it really is. An actual last question here. The Democratic Party primary calendar, that is right now being hotly debated. Biden and his association with, frankly, a very elderly and ineffective Southern Democratic Party machine pushed South Carolina to the front of the primary calendar, also as a way to foreclose any debate about him being the nominee, and we all saw how that worked out. And now Nevada is also trying to jockey as well to be the first state in the process, instead of Iowa and New Hampshire, which are two very white states that, Buttigieg did quite well in Iowa for, Bernie and him got close to winning that state last time, and he ended up completely flaming out after that. So I understand the impulse to pick a state that is more representative of the diversity in the coalition. But what do you make of this fight? Like, what is this fight really about, Nevada versus South Carolina in the primary calendar?
I think that there's some different sides of this, but I think ultimately what gets lost in that is that regardless of what the primary calendar is, we need to just run the best candidates that we can and figure out how to win, because inevitably we need to show that even if the establishment, for example, thinks that I think there are some people who believe that us picking South Carolina as a way of stomping down on progressives and making it harder for them to win. I think we need to figure out, obviously, how to win in the deeper South. We have great candidates like Justin Pearson who are doing great work in the South. We have candidates like Ruah Roman in Georgia. We have candidates like Akbar Ali in Georgia. We have candidates all over the place that are progressives in the South. And time again, we see throughout American history that some of the most successful social movements and progressive movements that start in our country start in the crucible of so much injustice that happens across the South, especially with what we're seeing right now with redistricting that's happening. And I want to see somebody who can go out there and win regardless of what those states are, based off of their vision and expanding the electorate and really exciting people. Because I don't think that just the primary calendar if the primary calendar in and of itself is totally determinative of who's going to end up being the nominee, I don't think that that's going to be there would be other reasons why somebody as a progressive candidate doesn't succeed. If it's just because of the sequence of states that are in the primary calendar, I don't think a strong candidate is actually going to be that affected by it. And it speaks to the necessity of us making sure that as progressives, we field the strongest candidate that we can for the Democratic primary.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen historically, even with Iowa and New Hampshire being first, as that's not determinative of who the candidate ends up being. I guess my just one final question is, are you concerned at all that if South Carolina is the first primary date, essentially, for the presidential pick, that we're kind of retreating to the Biden infrastructure and Jamie Harrison's leadership and it being centered down there, where they've really led us wrong in many ways?
I think that this is going to be driven a lot more by the candidates, to be honest with you. Like, Jamie Harrison is not chair of the DNC anymore. And sure, there's obviously across the Deep South, there's always like these bigger political machines that happen and everything. But there are regardless of the sequence, like I said, of the states that are out there, I think it could say even more if we did win South Carolina. And it presents a potentially a bigger challenge for progressives in some ways, but I think it could present a bigger opportunity. If the establishment and the media believe that the cards are stacked against us in that state, and there is a progressive that goes and wins the primary there because things are going so bad, and the establishment is going to do what they have done, which is continue to fail over and over and over again, to do anything to stand up to Donald Trump in any form other than a strongly worded letter, I think that is going to help to power us to victory. But what I will say is the primaries that really do matter right now are some of the final ones that we have coming up across the country for 2026, right? I want to make sure that people are not sleeping on a great candidate, a great progressive who's running, named Patrick Roth up in Boston, who's running against one of the most conservative Democrats in Congress, Stephen Lynch, who's voted to thank ICE and voted to give ICE billions of more dollars, and then say, oh, no, this is so terrible after Americans are gunned down by the ICE agents that he is giving more funding to. Patrick's a voting rights attorney, and he's a staunch progressive that we absolutely need to get more support behind. And there's not a whole lot of conversation about him right now, but we're doing everything we can to get him elected and defeat Stephen Lynch as an ultra-conservative Democrat who, by the way, when he was at a protest when Stephen Lynch was at a protest talking about what he's doing to fight back against Trump, somebody said, you need to do more to fight back against him. Stephen Lynch's response in this video of this was to say, I'm the member of Congress. You're not the member of Congress. I am. If you want to make this decision, you run, but I'm the member of Congress. That was his response to a Democratic constituent saying you need to do more to fight back against Donald Trump. That is the type of entitlement we need way less of in the Democratic Party. We're proud to be backing Patrick because of that. And more importantly, and sooner, we have Donovan McKinney, who is the first incumbent challenger that we endorsed in our primary efforts to challenge incumbents, who's running against one of the worst Democrats that we have in Congress, who's so bad that even his own fellow Democrats don't like him and are going on the record saying he won't be Mr. Asking who he is. His name is Sri Tandadar, and we have to defeat him with Donovan McKinney, who is a staunch progressives leader. And then we also have Mai Vang, who's going to be running in November against Democrat Doris Matsui, who's been there between her and her late husband 47 years and has taken millions of dollars in corporate cash over and over and over again. And Mai can win that race. But to do all of that, we need people's support, obviously, Emma, because like I said, we don't back candidates just based off of what a donor wants us to do. We back candidates that younger people and people of all ages can really believe in and can build a better Democratic Party. And my ask of people would be, if they can, please support our work at Leaders We Deserve, because we rely pretty much entirely on small dollar contributions to support our work. And that enables us to have the independence to do what the establishment has needed to for a long time, but has refused to, which is backing truly progressive candidates that will reject the influence of corporate PAC money and special interests in our elections. And if people want to support us, they can just go to leaderswedeserve.com.
And we will put a link to Leaders We Deserve down below wherever people are listening to or watching this. Yes, and I'm on the site now. I'm glad that you mentioned some candidates that are coming up. Donovan McKinney in Michigan, of course, is a Leaders We Deserve candidate. You mentioned Justin Pearson in Tennessee, which is also a primary that's next week. That's not getting a ton of attention. Patrick, because it's not on the same day, it's on a Thursday. Patrick Roth as well in Massachusetts. And then, of course, you have these candidates in California, Villegas, Mai Vang as well, who are going to be going up in the general election. But people can go to the website to check it out. David Hogg, really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much. And you can support Leaders We Deserve. Once again, link down below.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. We are back, and we are joined now by Biplob Kumar, investigative reporter, here to discuss his piece published by Dropsite News, India's Cockroach Protests End as Modi Government Bows to Demands. Biplob, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Emma. Big fan of the show, and glad to be here.
Glad to have you, and thank you so much for the kind words. Over the weekend, hundreds of thousands of protests cropped up all across India, led by students calling themselves the Cockroach Movement. And they had success at pressuring Narendra Modi's government. But I want to back up for just a second before we get to these more recent developments. Could you give people a sense of where India's government is right now? Modi took a little bit of a hit in recent years in terms of his overall power in the government, right? Like, I believe in the last elections, they were not as advantageous as they anticipated, but still his grip on power, being in power for so long as well, has he sustained himself in spite of some of those setbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. So what has happened in India in recent years is that Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, has had absolutely consolidated power, and his Hindu nationalist party, which is the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, their right-wing Hindu nationalists and unabashed about it, right? What you said is right. He's been in power since 2014 when he won in a wave election, right? He was really popular. and he won a landslide majority in 2014. He won a landslide majority in 2019 again. But in 2024, because of public, dissatisfaction with how things were going, we saw that his numbers went down. Like the number of seats that he got in India's parliament went down. He was able to form a government only through coalition. His party alone did not win a majority in 2024. But since then, what has happened is that he has doubled down his consolidation of power by being even more unabashed in terms of institutional capture, in terms of how elections are conducted in the country. And many states across India, like key states such as Bengal, which used to be a bastion of resistance against this politics, kind of switched over to the BJP earlier this year, in fact. And the problem with this is that what often goes unacknowledged globally is that although India is the largest democracy, is widely considered as the largest democracy in the world, we are seeing questions around how elections are conducted. Like there are increasing accusations of electoral malpractices, and that accusations around that the BJP and Modi's government are kind of tweaking. Like there is immense gerrymandering happening in many states, and the fact that election commission might be compromised, which is a neutral institution which was widely trusted by India's public. So that's the context in which this current protest, which is widely now known as the cockroach protests, right, in India, that kind of emerged. Yeah.
So that is a great recap to where we are at right now, to give us context for where we're at right now. Then let's just turn to this weekend. This movement, the newly formed Cockroach Janta Party, which is playing on the BJP, the party that you just mentioned, the fascist Hindu nationalist or far-right Hindu nationalist party that Narendra Modi heads. So they're the CJP with the Cockroach Janta Party. This is largely led by Gen Z. These are student protesters. How did this movement start, and what happened over the weekend?
Yeah. So first and foremost, again, like I have to mention that there is also public dissatisfaction, right? There is high amount of unemployment. Data around unemployment is not available, because the government is suppressing it. We have seen instances of them kind of trying to not reveal what the data is, so we don't even know often. But independent data suggests that unemployment rates are really high. So the youth is dissatisfied, is like widely felt, reporting from here. So how this came about was in May, the Chief Justice of India, Surya Kant, in a Supreme Court hearing, said something on the lines that a certain section of the youth of the country are like cockroaches. They are unemployed. Some of them freelance. Some of them are become activists, and they are only filing for the right to information, which is like the FOIA version of like India, right? The RTI. They are always filing these RTIs, wanting to know what's happening, but they don't actually have any job. So he said something on those lines. And then a certain guy who was sitting in Boston at the time, his name is Abhijit Dipke. He is from Boston. He graduated from Boston University, and he was pursuing his post-grad master's there at the time. This is this year in May. He tweeted something on the lines of, what if all the cockroaches come together, right? And when he tweeted that, he got incredible response. Millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people responded within like hours, and millions of people started like engaging with that tweet. And then he sent around a form asking how about we make a Cockroach Janta Party, as you mentioned, a play on BJP, right? And millions of people started supporting. He created a profile on Instagram and on Twitter, on X, and within weeks, the Instagram profile kind of outnumbered the number of engagement that the BJP gets, right? The CJP's Instagram profile. So we kind of I was closely, I was back in New York at the time as well, but I was closely tracking this, and it was pretty interesting, but we were still wondering what would it lead to. So what happened next was around the same time, the main issue around this protest, right, which is paper leaks. There was this medical entrance test that happens every year for admissions into medical schools in the country, publicly owned medical schools. They're highly competitive. Millions of students appear for it like every year. That's high pressure, and there are only so many seats that are available. So the examination got leaked just before the exams were due. So students who appeared for the exam were told that you will have to appear for it again, which means that the entire ordeal of like this high pressure environment where you have to like prepare for these exams, you have to repeat that entire ordeal, which means, enduring mental stress and anxiety for these young kids who are just, 16, 17, just out of high school, right? They're preparing to go to med school, and they've been preparing for this moment for the last 2-3 years, perhaps. So the CJP took up that issue and began their protests around June, in fact. But it saw traction over the last couple of weeks because few activists, few leaders of this movement like went on a hunger strike, number one. And then number two, on July 28th, which was last Monday, the CJP leaders, they called for a march to the parliament. And they said that everyone, you come here, we'll march to the parliament, and we'll demand one thing, which is the resignation of the education minister, because he's responsible for the leaks of this med school entrance test, right? And this was not the only paper leak, by the way. There have been rampant, instances of paper leak, which is really a sign of the government not being able to assure that, fair examinations happen and the kids get their fair share of their hard work, right? So July 20 is on last Monday, when the March to Parliament was called. Tens of thousands of students flew in to Delhi, and the police backlash was incredibly harsh, and it was unseen in many years. The way that the police responded to these protesters. And these are, mind you, these are like Gen Z, right? Like these are like 18, 19-year-old kids who for the first time are expressing their freedom of speech, like expressing dissent against their own government and demanding the government that they do right by them, but instead are getting beaten up by batons, tear gassed, and in some instances, pellet guns were used that left permanent disabilities on some people. There are video evidence of young women being slapped by male officers, some young women who were being, hit in the private parts, by male officers with batons, ridiculous stuff. That kind of video evidence that got widely shared. But what the government did not know, that this generation is very internet savvy, right? They are internet native and they can use Instagram, and their brutalities were being live broadcasted, and which infuriated even more people. And that led to a wave of people joining in at the site in Delhi, which is Jantar Mantar, where I was reporting from last week. And that kind of led to a pressure against the government that was unprecedented in Modi's time. I guess there have only been 2 other protests that kind of saw this amount of traction in the past, but this was really rattled the government, the way that students poured into the protest site.
Yeah, I had read, and I'm not sure if this is fully accurate. I'm learning as you're telling me, that this is the first time in Modi's tenure that a minister like this has been forced to resign outside of just staffing changes at his behest. This has been because of outside pressure, which is not something that Modi likes to cave to. He is a strong man, or tries to portray himself as a strong man. And I also saw that, of course, Modi and the BJP are calling these protesters Muslims. So that's been their response to all of this, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, yes, Modi is not known to take criticism kindly, right? He doesn't back down. And often when he is criticized or someone demands something like, from the government, he kind of double downs on his own action, right? Like, so this hyper masculine, like, Hindu nationalist image that he has built has been the reality on the ground as well. And Muslims have, protested in 2019. There was a big protest, and pretty successful at kind of mobilizing Muslims around the country against the citizenship law that would have kind of put a question mark on the citizenship of Muslims around the country, really. That was the anxiety, at least. There were big crackdowns against Muslims around the time. And then there was another farmers' protest around 2020 and 2021, which was primarily led by the Sikh farmers from the Sikh community in Punjab in India, primarily from Punjab in India, which also saw an immense amount of like anti-Sikh rhetoric. So every time there's a protest of this scale, the government finds a way to narrativize it or polarize it across religion, and tries to kind of retain its like Hindu majoritarian kind of movement. And this protest as well, they try to do that by pointing out that, there are some Muslim protesters, sections of the government's the BJP leaders in the BJP tried to do that, but the issue was too big. It too many people kind of saw it as a real issue, and the crackdowns as brutal. But I must say, even now, across many states in India, Muslims are being targeted as being related to this protest or co-organizing this protest. But largely, what we see is that government on the back foot. They are being defensive right now. They know that their own base, some of the people of their own Hindu nationalist base, are also seeing that this government hasn't worked for them really, right? So that's where we are at right now. Yeah.
And how does the solidarity that these young people have with Gaza play into this, with the Palestinian cause? We've seen that Narendra Modi and his government have cozied up to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government in recent years. They both share a hatred of Muslim people. And so young people are not happy with that, and that played into this as well.
Yeah, I must say that the primary focus of the protest was education and the issue of education and demanding reforms in the education system. But when I went there, when I was at the protest site, speaking to all these people who had come in, and these were like kids who had like just taken the train, fought with their parents to be at the protest site in Delhi, right? And they were just sleeping on the sidewalks, like just on a piece of cloth, like, just with the backpack as like a pillow, right? And they were like there for like weeks. A lot of them, when I spoke to them, were actually very well versed in the politics of the world. These are educated young kids who just are facing an uncertain future, right? And they are also like, there were kids who were talking about like stuff like Gaza. There were students who wore the keffiyeh around them. They were talking about the genocide. They were talking about genocide because they saw that, on Instagram, these are kids who are on Instagram all the time, right? They interacted with, reels of the genocide being broadcasted on the internet, right? And the fact that there was solidarity, they expressed solidarity with like young students, the fact that young Palestinians in Gaza had to see their colleges being fully flattened as a result of the genocide. They felt the same kind of empathy and solidarity towards them. So the kids who were at the protest site, although the leaders of the CJP itself were kind of controlling the narrative around the protest, or being strategic about how to go about their demands with the government. But the protesters on the ground were very well versed, very well educated, and that's kind of what has given hope across progressives around the country, that this could be how we go about resisting this government. That even though there is deep mistrust of the election commission, of elections, of the government, and we don't know if this will reflect on electoral outcomes, right? It's uncertain if BJP is actually going to be affected. They seem like such a behemoth when it comes to elections. They're such a machine. But the politics of the streets could be transformed, and the politics of the streets what could give hope to people across the country.
Well, this has been super illuminating. Really appreciate your time today, Biplob Kumar Das. You can read his piece at Dropside News, India's Cockroach Protests End as Modi government bows to demands. We will be monitoring this story and appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you so much.
Of course. With that, folks, we're going to wrap up the free part of this program and head into the fun part of the program, where we'll probably take some calls. We shall see. We will read your IMs for sure.
We're going to put the fun in funeral.
Oh my God. You know, we don't need to do too much to have fun when we're talking about Lindsey Graham's death. It's kind of in and of itself a bit of a celebratory event, but Trump and the Republicans and Sean Hannity and the other attendees have made it even more humorous somehow. Thanks to everybody. We recognize that the levels were a little off in the interview. We'll work on that. We're, getting the tech right here. So at least we look clear. I think the show looks pretty good today. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning and with the Jacobin show?
Left Reckoning had Aaron Brown on the program yesterday to talk about Elon Musk did a long sit down with the Economist magazine, and I think it's really embarrassing for the entire world that he's the richest man in it and is so full of shit. Yeah. Actually, you're embarrassing. Everyone hates you. Everyone loves me, actually. And I don't care if I'm hated, but everyone loves me.
Do you see the Twitter followers?
I've got so many Twitter followers. Check that out. We went deep into it. It was 80 minutes long, and he's a psycho. The question is like, okay, Elon, how are your businesses ever going to make money? And his literal answer is, the AI Jesus is going to take over. The AI Jesus is my term for it. Is going to take over and do all of that stuff, and so you don't need to worry about it. We're going to have such abundance because of AI that who cares about money? We don't even need to talk about raising my taxes, because what is money? What does money even mean? He was saying this to the Economist magazine, a magazine that's existed for long enough for Karl Marx to have similar problems with it that I do. And
it seems like you care about money. It seems like you care a little bit about money.
Well, that's the thing, Elon. And she's like, okay, if money doesn't matter and it's just, we're going to have such abundance that what is money anyway? Do you think you should pay more taxes? And his response is, well, first of all, I do pay a lot of taxes.
Yeah,
already.
There you go. So it sounds like it matters a little bit. Folks, like the stream. Why don't you do that? Get into people's feeds. Join. That's free. But if you want to become a paid member, join themajorityreport.com. It keeps us alive and thriving in times where, Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, Trump are circulating memos about targeting leftist groups and individuals, including our colleague and friend Hassan Piker. So if you want to try to keep us resilient from third-party platforms, join themajorityreport.com.
Yeah, pre-fund the inevitable lawsuit that tries to keep us all in business.
Oh my God! How could you say such a thing? And
how can I voice my number one concern over the past decade? Yeah.
You got to do it in an artful way. Yes, that is concerning. Anyway, let's not think about it right now. Join themajorityreport.com if possible. Okay, folks, see you in the fun half in a second.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the Majority Report.
Wait, look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
Yeah, I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No, I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
What?
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and that's what we call the biz. Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get
what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Sushi and poker with the boys. Oh my God. Wow. Sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. So was offered to tour. Yeah. Sushi and poker with the boys. Logic. Tour. Sushi and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. Had this debate 7,000 times. A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like, I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job. Twerk? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. Willy Wonka twerk? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. What's that offered to twerk? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's twerk. A real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. What's that offered to twerk? Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again. That offered to twerk? That's a real thing. That's poker with the boys. I think he might be blowing it out of proportion. Real thing. That's poker with the boys. That offered to twerk? That's a real thing. That's poker. Let's go, Joey. Twerk. Sushi and poker with the boys. Take it easy, Dan. Twerk. Sushi and poker. Things have really gotten out of hand. Sushi and poker with the boys. Delusional. Twerk. Deluded. Sushi. You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the Majority Report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is the pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump. Violet.
Twerk.
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is, so I wrote my honors thesis about it.
Oh,
sorry.
She wrote an honors thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
We are back, folks. It is the fun half of the Majority Report. Read some IMs, then we'll get to some clips here. John from T-Bird, kudos Emma and the crew for holding down the fort while Sam slowly chokes the life out of Mitch McConnell these last few weeks. Can I get a shofar spelling for my birthday yesterday? This show has been such a boon for learning and knowledge throughout the years. Well worth the membership to help y'all survive and thrive. We got to work on getting the shofar on Matt's soundboard, so we may have to get you... Do you want to do another drop? All right, we're going to work on the shofar. It actually makes no sense that we just have it on Sam's soundboard and not your computer, but there we go.
Maybe.
Only he gets to do it? Is that what you're trying to say?
It might be anti-Semitic for the rest of us to blow the shofar.
Right. Don't put us in this position anymore. That's going to be like, you know, a piece of evidence in Stephen Miller's case against us. Desecrating the shofar.
The chat, you heard that shofar, right? We do have a new interface today for the audio as well as the video, so hopefully that did play out. I think it did, but...
All right, we shall see. El Knipsyoung, was Martin earlier on forced into pushing for an autopsy because Ben Wickler and the other Democrats were supporting an audit? That might be the case. I wish I could have asked
that's
David
a funny
about
theory.
that.
That's
yeah.
a very good theory, actually. That's perfect.
Yes, that would make sense.
Damn it.
They didn't hear the
I don't know which
shofar?
one Sam is. We have to figure that out when we can
Okay.
A/B test it. So there you go.
Sounded like a wasp in your ear.
I brought my didgeridoo. Maybe I'll play that for you guys.
Oh, you did. You're always bringing your didgeridoo into the office.
It's so quirky and whimsical.
I mean, honestly. Are we testing something out?
Yeah, but don't worry.
Okay. Can I continue to read IMs? Sauron Mamdani. In the 1980s, while the monster Ronald Reagan was trying to ignore HIV/AIDS because it was primarily a gay disease, Dr. Fauci was actively going to gay bars and even bathhouses to try and expand data acquisition and understanding of the new epidemic. Yes, that's true. Okay. There's the birthday shofar. Oh, they didn't hear it? Okay. Another Max from Brooklyn. As a Jew, it's not anti-Semitic to blow the shofar. Missing the as and just saying a Jew is horrible. As a Jew, it's not anti-Semitic to blow the shofar. I give you full permission, okay? We're trying it again. That is for John from Teberg, and that is his birthday. Hopefully third time is the charm there. Let's do Lindsey Graham's funeral here. So yesterday was Lindsey Graham's funeral, and you might be wondering, how could they fill a church with people who care about Lindsey Graham? He leaves behind no real family outside of his siblings. He was barely even mourned immediately after his death, before he was being basically batted like a piñata, his corpse was, to get
He wanted
goodies
to make
out of it.
sure that the military-industrial complex had more than enough.
I mean, Netanyahu batting his body. Can we get some Israel aid to fall out of this? Trump, save act, let's go. He honestly, as he died, they were honoring him being used in a really cynical way to kill children overseas and for the Republican agenda at home. Frankly, Lindsey would have wanted that. So they honored this unloved man in his death as he would have wanted it in life. In addition, there was like a bipartisan push to send Ukraine arms, right? That was in honor of Lindsey Graham, where it's just like the fact that, you know, I would hope that enriching defense manufacturers isn't the thing I'm most remembered for, or the thing that people feel is the dearest to my heart, but I guess that's Lindsey Graham for you. Trump was in attendance, Netanyahu was in attendance as well, and Trump fell asleep multiple times. You can find that footage. He's almost sleeping here, but it seems like in an effort to wake himself up, he decided to have a little bit of a breath mint, a Tic Tac, and yeah, I don't know. Just play the video and you'll get to enjoy this because it's quite funny.
So boring.
JD?
You like these ones? Came out in 1985.
JD turns down the Tic Tac, which, weird move. I would always say yes. Here he goes. Oh!
How the hell do I open this thing?
Nope. That's when it Go back. Did you see the falling Tic Tac? He missed his mouth. God, I wish the camera didn't zoom in here so we could.
That's the thing is, I'm not sure if that's a.
Yes, it's
that
go.
is cuff.
Press play. You'll see it fall. You saw it. Yeah. You saw it. It's right on his tie.
Right. I was looking at the cuff.
Yes, that's the TikTok. He couldn't get it in Tic Tac. He couldn't get it in his mouth. God, I'm calling it TikTok now. This is the reverse Chuck Schumer, the ticky tacky. So yeah, there he is. Let's go to his disappointed face though, and him trying to play it off. Trump was right about everything.
Easy come, easy go. Look how much lighter his hand is than his face.
Oh God.
Why does he pucker like that?
Yeah, and can he not grip the Tic Tac in his fingers? I don't know.
Have you seen The Gods Must Be Crazy? Like, he was playing with that Tic Tac case, like the Coke bottle that fell out of the airplane.
I know. This is his fidget spinner. All right, now let's see him successfully get it and then try to play it off. New one.
He cannot focus.
Right.
And none of them can. They're all just having a great time.
Besson gets a Tic Tac now. What's next, dude? This one also was very amusing to me. You know, sometimes people go up to the coffin where their loved ones are laid to rest and they say a somber word. You know, if you're Ruth Bader Ginsburg's trainer, you do push-ups in front of her casket. Trump doesn't want to do anything that's, you know, physically exerting here. So here he is sending Lindsay off in the most nonchalant way possible.
Going down some stairs there, a little bit risky. There you go. Good,
a double tap, just like you would have wanted, just like the girls' school.
Yeah,
remember?
Exactly.
Remember?
It's like somebody said Abdul El Sayed's going to win on Tuesday, and Emma's next to the coffin. knock
on wood. Yeah. God, I hope they, in the coffin, to honor him, they should just play a soundtrack of drone strikes and women and children screaming, and then he will be laid to rest in earnest.
It'd be funny if his Disney wand started buzzing after he knocked on the casket that they buried him with.
He wants to be buried in a tutu.
With the glitter Disney wand?
With his glitter Disney
just
wand.
Hear a muted like, let her go, let her go.
Trump also gave some remarks. Here he is eulogizing Lindsey Graham and admitting that not a lot of people liked him, basically.
Heated things got in Washington. Virtually everyone, Republican or Democrat, liked Lindsey. Well, not everybody, but it sounds good. Not everybody. He was a tough cookie, okay? I have to veer from this for a second. He was a tough cookie, Darlene, but he was beautiful.
That's my favorite part. But he was beautiful. Was he? Lady
He was just
G?
buying time to find his place in the speech.
I
He
know.
didn't even know he said he was beautiful.
But he looked at Darlene and he was like, maybe I could get down with that. Lindsay in a wig? But he was beautiful. They also had another man eulogize Lindsey Graham, Sean Hannity, as one does, news anchor, eulogizing a senator. Interesting. Here he is saying what he thinks Lindsey Graham will be doing in heaven when he gets there. And I don't believe in heaven, but I can't imagine Lindsey Graham would be there.
No, he's in hell.
If there's a hell, Lindsey Graham is 100% there. But I guess in the topsy-turvy world of Sean Hannity, heaven is where you go when you believe in mass murder and help commit it all the time.
Lindsey, Mr. President, I would argue in my mind, probably has a heavenly version of Mar-a-Lago. It may even be a little bigger. He may have a little more gold in
Wait, bigger? No, that's not possible. Mar-a-Lago is the most gold, it's the biggest. Heaven is not going to steal my shine.
Even in heaven, these guys have exclusive sort of gilded cages that they get to retreat to.
And I bet they checked ID before he got into heaven.
You're right,
Look,
just like you would do at Olive Garden.
You got to go through two sets of gates, okay? The pearly gates, everyone gets through those gates. We're going to do better gates, better than Pearl. Pearl is actually very 1980s.
Yes.
We're doing a lot better materials now for our gates that only a few people in heaven can get through.
I like the idea of Trump being really pissed that Sean Hannity would suggest that in heaven that they were in any way able to improve on his Florida golf club. How dare you?
Lindsay's up there pushing for the Save Heaven Act.
It may even be a little bigger. He may have a little more gold in the Oval Office in his mansion in heaven.
Lock him up.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he added one big, beautiful ball.
Sorry, what was that he tried to say? Wouldn't be surprised if what?
He's literally looking at Trump in the eyes as he does this. I mean...
And he doesn't say anything sensible. I don't even understand what the point he's making.
I mean, honestly, a public hand job would be more dignified than what this is.
You didn't understand him because Trump's, what was in his mouth.
in the Oval Office in his mansion in heaven. And I wouldn't be surprised if he added one big, beautiful ballroom and an arch somewhere on the property.
The property
because
in heaven.
He would want to obviously duplicate his dearest friend in life, you, Mr. President.
John McCain is like... Also, John McCain's in hell right now, having reunited with Lindsey Graham. They are
recreated that Vietnamese torture dungeon
Exactly.
he was in hell.
they are tongue kissing, and he's looking up saying like, his dearest friend in life. We were basically openly in love with each other. Yeah. But that was Lindsey Graham too. He needed a man to worship and to follow, and it was always a man. Yeah. And Trump filled that void when his closest friend died. So yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't in attendance, and this is another part of Sean Hannity's speech here. Here he claims that Lindsey Graham was not a warmonger. No. He was actually a lover of peace, and whoever's operating the cameras here at Fox News did quite a good job in who they cut to.
Known this man.
Oh.
Lindsey, he was often unfairly characterized as a warmonger. I've heard that false criticism a lot. It's not true. The truth was the opposite.
What? Extremely hawkish. I will tell you, he never saw a war that he didn't like. Only his true friends would understand that. But he wanted it for the good of our country.
Known this man.
Never saw a war he didn't like.
Sean, you must have not have known him really well. That's like the only thing that got him up in the morning.
Trump is so honest about people who have been mean to him in the past.
Exactly.
It's the only time he's honest. He was a war hawk. People didn't like him.
Right, but he likes a guy like that, though. He thinks that he's a tough, SOB. And I still think that it's interesting that Lindsey Graham had said that, like, you can get to Trump with a certain level of sycophancy, but when he feels like you're just sucking up to him at a certain level, he loses respect for you. And I think Lindsey Graham was smart enough to be able to toe that line to still get his agenda across, because Trump ran on no new wars, and this is hurting him. Gas prices are increasing, food prices are increasing, fertilizer crisis. Like, this is an issue. How did Lindsey get his dying wish fulfilled? And I think it's because, he might contradict Trump at one point, but how did he do so? It would be to steer him towards some more hawkishness. And Trump is easily manipulated by guys like Lindsey Graham and guys like Benjamin Netanyahu. There's a reason that Lindsey Graham was Netanyahu's essentially favorite senator for decades. It's because Mossad probably had a thick-ass file, and he did his bidding, and they were similarly, hawkish creatures with one agenda in mind.
I mean, any sort of, if you're any supporter of Israel or like lead Zionist would be very interested in a politician as subservient to the military-industrial complex as Lindsey Graham is. The thing that Trump said about Lindsey, not everybody liking Lindsey, but it's nice to say that, reminds me of this Mitchell and Webb Look sketch. I'll just play about 30 seconds here about the best man speech at a wedding.
With the most beautiful woman in the world, my wife.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation for the best man.
The most beautiful woman in the world? I don't think so, mate. I mean, honestly. I'm not being nasty. It's not nasty to say someone isn't the most beautiful woman in the world, and she looked...
You get that is my entire life in one clip. That's the most relatable thing I've ever seen.
Let's not go overboard here. Sean Hannity pretending he didn't like war. And then people pretending people like Lindsey Graham. Trump's like, I'm old. I don't have time for this anymore.
Only his real friends knew.
Yeah, right. And they were golfing buddies too. That was another way that Lindsey was able to ingratiate himself to Donald Trump. Golfing, and I'm sure losing on purpose as well.
And he loves when people give his home phone number away in a stump speech in 2016.
Oh my God. Yes. God. Yes. Trump said, I mean, people forget that race. Lindsey Graham tried to run for president as a closeted gay man. So, just to give people a sense of how narcissistic you have to be, as if that wouldn't have indelibly harmed him in a Republican primary, and he could have rode through all the way to the White House. Are we joking? But when he dropped out very early on, said that Trump was going to destroy the Republican Party, that he was a racist and a xenophobe, and that his Islamophobia was a problem. Didn't end up being the case. Like, that's where, what were we playing where, it was David Pakman claiming that the DSA is going to destroy the Democratic Party like the Republican Party has been destroyed. It's like, what Lindsey Graham said about what was going to happen to the Republican Party being destroyed, like, it just didn't happen. They've gained more and more institutional power. They've gotten a wish list of items that they never thought they could imagine. The Iran war, are you joking? ICE budget exceeding the FBI? So they have this, like, this domestic surveillance force where you... with all these contracts to Palantir and big tech and weapons defense contractors are thrilled with this situation right now. Roe v. Wade was overturned, which people said could never happen because of precedent.
Massive tax cuts. They've got more than they could ever bargain for. And if that's breaking the party, then sign me up for that happening.
Yeah, and that is what Lindsey Graham was wrong about. And he knew how to suck up to power, and he knew where the wind was blowing within his own party. And unfortunately, he actually got what he wanted before he died, which was this war in Iran.
Here's Trump in 2015 on this.
This is amazing. Doxing Lindsey Graham.
Trump, this is Senator Lindsey Graham. I wonder if it would be possible for you to call Fox.
Different
because,
guy.
you know, until I ran, I had that little thing which I do just for fun. Fox and Friends are so great. Brian and Steve and Elizabeth. They're great people, right? They're great. And he wanted to know whether or not I could give him a good reference on Fox and Friends, okay? He wanted to know, would I do that? And then, of course, he wanted to know whether or not he could come and see me for some campaign contribution. And he gave me his number, and I found the card. I wrote the number down. I don't know if it's the right number. Let's try it. 202. I don't know. Maybe it's, you know, it's 3-4 years ago, so maybe it's an old number. 202. So, I don't know, give it a shot.
He did it twice. He gave a visual and he returned to say the number 2 times in case you missed it the first time.
For a split second there, I thought he just held it up. I thought I was misremembered him actually reading it out. No, he reads it out 2 times to make sure you got it. I don't know, try it out. It is crazy how much he's slowed down, too.
It really is, yeah.
That's what you do with your best friend.
A dozen male escorts heard that phone number and were like, God, I had to memorize that thing.
He's going to change his number now. I'm not going to be able to get my easy
right.
rent payment.
Right, exactly. I was able to overcharge this desperate queen.
Goes off the rails fast.
I know. Fallopian tube. God, he was so fucking funny. It's incredible. I know. Eclectic Llama, rather, says, Emma, I'm sorry you don't understand the Tic Tac moment. Let me explain. As Trump is in mourning, and thinking of Lindsay, he remembers his best moments with Lindsay, pucker and suck. Yuck.
Ew.
That was so earnest. Dr. Dragon Rider says, dementia symptom of trouble with pinch grips, such as picking up small items. No future as a gamer. I would beat him in almost any game. I think you would beat Trump in a game.
In Fortnite? Yeah, probably.
Oh, he would throw the controller through the fucking window.
No chance he would even put himself in that situation. Chase from Michigan. Thanks, for Emma. I totally needed the vision of McCain and Graham tongue kissing. Cricket Gnome's Revenge. What on earth is he wearing? No hat?
Huh? I don't know what that is referring to.
Me neither. Tempe from Maryland, his hand movements there look so classic dementia if you've ever had a loved one. That's motor deterioration right there. Yeah, with the tic-tac, exactly.
Or it's just his small hands problem, which goes back. Remember that whole thing that used to be the meme in the first administration?
Yes.
Small hands, needs to pick up a beer glass with 2 hands.
Sax repair. If Brian has a didgeridoo, how's his circular breathing?
I don't have a didgeridoo.
There we go. Dr. Dre.
Good question, though.
What? When are we going to get a new Transition Fun Half song that includes grandma clips? Well, I mean, whenever anyone wants to help us out.
Yeah, we've paid a sum total of $0 for those, thanks to our lovely members of our audience who produce them themselves.
Yes, they're wonderful, but we can't commission them for that reason. We just rely on people's generosity.
And they wouldn't hit the same if we did it.
Exactly.
And also, we're not as talented as the people in our audience.
Right, right. Let's do...
Do you want to see Fetterman? Because we had Netanyahu in town here.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's in a suit, John Fetterman.
John Fetterman dressed up because Big Daddy Genocide came to town to give him a little kiss and tell him that he's proud of him, which is seemingly all that matters to this man at this point. Prem Talker of Zateo tried to catch up with him in the halls of the Senate, and you'll be shocked to learn that John Fetterman is still unable to process basic information and is hopeful that Prem is saying that he's from Tucker Carlson's network. That seems to be what's going on here, because he can't understand his last name.
He's being intentionally insulting when he calls Prem Tucker Carlson.
Okay.
Because of his last name. He's like, oh, the last name's Tucker.
Got it.
Yeah.
So he's doing a racist joke, appealing to Tucker Carlson in a suit for the first time ever to show support for Benjamin Netanyahu and his visit to D.C. Got it.
Hey there, Senator. How you doing?
Who are you with?
Prem Tucker with Zateo. How are you?
Huh?
Prem Tucker with Zateo. How are you?
I'm sorry. Let's try that one more time.
Sure, yeah, you're okay. Prem Tucker with Zateo.
Tucker?
Yes.
Tucker Carlson?
No, like Tucker Carlson. Prem Tucker with Zateo.
Oh, Zedio. Oh,
Yes,
yeah, the pro-Hamas.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
You guys
Just
are great, drop site. You know, the pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah.
pro-international law, Senator. But anyways, what did you make of that?
I want to apologize to the Zedio fans. Keep killing the Hamas leadership, and also the Iranian too.
On that note, Senator, what did you make of what did?
And also.
That's okay, Senator. What did you make of the poll that showed Americans supporting arresting Benjamin Netanyahu at a 22-point margin?
I don't know why your network's so pro-Hamas.
I'm asking you about American public opinion, Senator. American public opinion.
I don't understand it. Why do your readership love?
I'm asking about American public opinion, Senator. American public opinion, Senator. American support arresting Benjamin Netanyahu at a 22-point margin, Senator.
Yeah, and why does El Sayed?
Senator, I'm talking about American public opinion.
Senator, on this hearing, do you plan to ask Dr. Fauci? This is the pro-Hamas network harassing.
Despicable.
He walks like Andre the Giant, like the year he died.
I don't even know what to say. He is barely functioning at this point, and
He's out of breath from that walk.
Yeah, all he knows is copy paste, racist comment, copy past.
Like the pettiest, most
Zionism.
unthinking meanness. Like Prem is so kind.
Yes.
And it's okay. You need to look at your iPhone to hear what I'm saying, and then he repeats his name 3 times for the guy, and the guy makes a fucking joke about Tucker Carlson.
Right.
Like, as Prem is going out of his way to accommodate him, and it's like, okay, he can't even stay on subject because now he's talking about drop site news for some fucking reason, and saying I'm pro-Hamas. I'm asking you about polling, Senator, and you calling everyone Hamas lovers. Like, this is unserious.
Exactly right. CT Lefty, where would I contact to provide clips for a segment? There's an important governor's race in Connecticut that desperately needs a final push to get a progressive challenger over the line. Majorityreporters@gmail.com. Gulf Coast Grit, Prem is legit the nicest dude. Yes. Michael Sarah Palin says, bro, breathing like Darth Vader. Ad hominem Fetterman is such a dick, I'm embarrassed. I supported him when he was running. Yeah, I mean, he's completely lost it, and maybe always had some of these inclinations, and he was taking Israel money, but it seems like there has been something that has broken.
That's a broken person.
Yeah. Let's do this. I want to make sure we cover this Max Miller thing. So that's number 22. This story is really horrifying. So content warning a little bit because of the allegations here of abuse. But there's this Republican representative, Max Miller, from Ohio's 7th District. And he's been the subject of a ton of scrutiny right now, rightly so, because he's been accused of some really extreme domestic violence against his wife and child. And what's notable is that his wife is the daughter of Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio, who just defeated Sherrod Brown in the last cycle, took a bunch of crypto money. And so, like, this morning, he was saying the F word a lot at Anthony Fauci, acting like a real tough guy. How about you stand up and call for Max Miller to step down from Congress in the House? The guy that's being accused of abusing your grandchild and daughter? Just a thought. But this is where the Republicans are. This is how cynical they are. They're not. I would be shocked to see if Moreno does that unless it's a foregone conclusion, because they are worried about the slim majority in the House. So is there a better example of ethics being cast completely aside for raw power than that example? The allegations are awful. They have a child, a 2-year-old girl who had a broken collarbone, and that forced Ohio Child Services to start an investigation. And when, over the course of that investigation, they found more allegations of abuse. So they spoke to his wife, Moreno, the daughter of the senator, and she essentially said that she couldn't rule out that the daughter's collarbone had been broken by Miller because of previous abuse that he had that had occurred, including him throwing scalding water at her and burning her, holding a gun to her head, pushing her, and more. This is what I think, look, this guy, George Santos, not a reliable narrator, but I do find this clip from 2023 to be interesting because it probably is more of an indicator of how this stuff is just like
open secrets. And then when powerful actors want to use blackmail for their own ends, they will deploy it. This had to come out because of the investigation, but they must have known, given how Santos claps back here at Miller.
You, sir, are a crook. I know I should direct my comments to the chair. I yield back.
My colleague wants to come up here, call me a crook. Same colleague who's accused of being a woman beater. Are we really going to ignore the facts that we all have passed and we all have the media coming out against us on a daily basis? I can go and read about all my colleagues. I'm not going to stand here to smear them. I'm not going to stand here and use the time I have to say ill things about my colleagues. I refuse to stoop to that level.
Sir, are a crook.
But I will. I refuse to stoop to that level. But I will steal a veteran's money who's trying to get his dog to go to the vet.
That's such a clear distillation that they know these things. Like,
yes.
George Santos, like, I'm not going to smear, but like also I'm sitting on information about you, your character, but in the interest of us all getting along as a caucus or whatever, I'm going to move on despite you calling me a criminal. I mean, is there any better, like...
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The right is obsessed with Graham Plattner, and when it was discovered that there was a credible accusation of sexual assault, basically everybody uniformly said he has to step aside. Bernie Sanders, this show, anybody that had previously supported that campaign.
The people that had worked on his campaign up until then, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, there were allegations about unsettling behavior, even towards the Republican operative. It wasn't an abuse allegation at that time. And then when it crossed that threshold, okay, this is beyond the pale. He's being accused of a crime. What have Republicans been doing? Probably just sitting on this information about this abuser for years and years.
Probably using it. Probably saying, hey, you want to vote in a way that we don't like on this issue? We know everything about you.
Yes. So if the Republicans, and if George Santos had a sense of this in 2023, so Miller was elected in 2022, that clip was from 2023, Bernie Moreno, the father-in-law of this guy, was elected to the Senate in 2024. I would imagine that he knew about the abuse of his daughter at that point, if that's the case. If it was an open secret in Republican circles,
presumably,
he just became a senator. So that would make sense as to why he's not speaking out about it now.
I mean, even Santos used it there for disciplinary reasons. Like, you're going to bring up me being a criminal. I'm going to allude to, I'm not going to say it, but I'm literally going to say it, that you're a woman beater.
They don't have standards for, like, this kind of thing. And they're not going to force somebody to resign, even if they, like, the only reason that Matt Gaetz was ousted was because he pissed off Kevin McCarthy and his ilk personally. They didn't care about the accusations of sexually, abusing underage girls prior to that. They just cared when he bothered the Republican establishment. And so I think it's pretty instructive to see how some of this stuff is deployed, and how some of it is kept as ammunition. We, and Matt, I've become increasingly convinced of this in our years of working together. You have said this before, that it is not discussed enough the role that blackmail plays in our politics and that information hoarding does.
Yep. Liabilities become assets on the right balance sheet.
Yep. Gulf Coast Grit, the weapon to the head is truly disturbing. Even if you don't have the intention to harm them, you're putting the fear of death into another human being. This F's people up more than anyone can know. And it's the mother of the kids on top of that. I don't believe in the carceral system, but stuff like this makes me want to put him under the jail. Don't want to hear anything from them about Plattner ever. Also, let's remember our friend Jim Jordan and his contributions. Yeah, Ohio Republicans. Jesus. Hogtown, Bernie Moreno's too busy making sure his interns don't create accounts soliciting men for sex to check in on his daughter and grandchild. Yep.
That was a joke. It's a funny joke somebody played on it.
Just a joke. They traveled down to his parents' place, the interns, as they do, long form pranks, to the area where his parents live, to go on Grindr. To frame him as a joke.
As a joke.
April Fools.
Got you good. This came out during a campaign.
I'm telling you, this is where we're coining it. It's the Lavender Syndicate. Trademark it. Gulf Coast Grit. Oh, wait, I said that. I read that already. Irish Moss boss. Miller was on Fox after Tlaib's censure, calling her an anti-Semite, saying they were going to turn Gaza into a parking lot and broken glass back in November 2023. Genocidal freak. Science is political. Makes me wonder about former progressives turned to centrist Democrats, like the senator from Arizona who was BFFs with Swalwell. And it's not like, yeah, that is interesting. Another Arizona Democrat turned independent, Kirsten Sinema, had it's not misconduct of this kind, but it came out after she left office how she had basically completely abused her office to buy Taylor Swift tickets and other things and lavish gifts. So, not so adventurous. Blackmail in politics is a really interesting subject. Someone said about J. Edgar Hoover, he had dirt on half of Congress and the other half feared that he did. Yeah, I mean, Roy Cohn, McCarthy himself, widely rumored to be a gay person. Like the lavender, what do you call it? It's not not the Red Scare. Was it the Lavender Scare? That's what you call it? Yeah, the Lavender Scare. I mean, that was very much using that kind of blackmail to get a right-wing anti-communist agenda across too. And J. Edgar Hoover himself, we should not forget, gay man. Yep. And there's also indications that there may have been blackmail on him as well being used to get him to do certain things. So
you got some skin in the game when it comes to having secrets.
Yeah,
so
you have to have dirt.
Yeah.
To get it. I mean, that's how they were able to keep Bernie Sanders on the outside for so long.
Yeah,
There's no dirt.
Right. Well, it's how cults operate too. It's also it's like how frats operate. Like we have a shared hotbed of illegality where one goes down, we all go down together, right? And like it binds people
Reinforces
together.
solidarity.
Yep. Same thing with the Epstein crew.
Yep.
On the most extreme level, raping girls as a form of class solidarity and in-group solidarity. Like, what happens when you can't reach a new taboo? What happens when you've achieved everything? You have all of the power and influence that you want. The next taboo that you can break, the next way that you can feel like a man or alive or like in control of the world is like raping a girl.
And a lot easier to trust a business partner after you've communally done crimes with them on an island.
Yep. How can I reify my masculinity when I've, as Alan Dershowitz and Larry Summers, when I've achieved all the power that I could ever need? I mean, that's the sick psychology behind it. Ad hominem. Emma, wasn't sure you saw, but apparently Taylor Swift was able to have MSG surveillance cameras turned off for her at the wedding. Just thought you might have an opinion on that. Of course I do. But good for her, because I had heard that she had to do it in this venue for security reasons. So it turns out she didn't have the intense security that she needed, but she still wanted to pay James Dolan all of that money. And, you got to respect that. Saturn Girl, I know you don't have the shofar up, but hopefully Matt can give me a Michigan fist for getting married.
Jesus, I don't
How
wanna hear that
romantic.
sentence ever again.
No, let's not kink shame Saturn Girl. We only do.
I want that Michigan fist!
No, I think Matt was just his name being
My
in the
involvement
sentence.
in it.
Oh, there you go.
It wasn't kink shaming at all.
Just don't bring me into it.
Right.
Just don't do it in public.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care
Just
what-
keep it out of my face, okay?
I don't want to see two men fisting each other on the street. Keep that in the home. A heterosexual couple doing a double fist. I'm okay. That's what
was
God
that in Trump's first or second
intended.
inaugural address? I can't remember.
I mean, one could
Call it fisting.
One could argue Trump is constantly being fisted as a puppet for Netanyahu.
Yeah.
One could argue that if they were disgusting. Oh, wait, let's do this 21. So this is pretty nuts. Another important Senate race, of course, is happening in Minnesota. Peggy Flanagan is the candidate that's going to block arms sales to Israel, that's going to abolish ICE, that wants to tax billionaires, versus Angie Craig, who is the corporatist centrist, basically Haley Stevens in this race, handpicked by Chuck Schumer. And like personal character, once again, not always our emphasis until it crosses a certain threshold, but it can paint the picture of somebody if it's a pattern of behavior. And this kind of stuff about Angie Craig seems to be a pattern of behavior. So much so that State Senator John Hoffman decided that he wanted to speak out publicly because he was so disgusted by this. He was in the ICU recovering from being shot. And
by that psycho who was going around pretending to be a police officer and knocked on his door at 2 a.m. And Hoffman realized, hey, you're not a police officer, tried to close the door and got shot by this psycho.
And a horrific crime targeting Democratic politicians, by the way. And
the Republican senators, like, what's the libertarian guy's name?
Mike Lee.
Lee said it was actually secretly Antifa.
Right.
Despicable.
Disgusting people. And they have created this culture of violence that contributed to these shootings and deaths. So, this being your first instinct to try to weaponize this situation for political gain is instructive, because Angie Craig is also accepting a bunch of outside spending in her race from the genocide lobby, from crypto, and more. Here is John Hoffman explaining how she was calling him when he was in the ICU recovering from a shooting, begging for his endorsement.
This is real personal. It's different than from her opponent. When her opponent would check on our family, she asked that I endorse her campaign. Yeah, she sent a dear friend out twice, once when I was in the ICU and once at our home. Honest to God, true story. And I'm being public about it because it really hurt me. And he even said, and Tina and Peggy, you know who I'm talking about, because I've known the guy as long as I've known them, even longer, right? But it was different from our experience, because when she said she wanted my endorsement, she was doing that during moments when our family's story had high visibility. And that's all you need to know, that the difference is between the opponent that Peggy has and Peggy Flanagan, because Peggy Flanagan, she checked on us out of her love for how we were.
So that's also him essentially saying that once the news cycle moved on from these political shootings, she didn't really care that much about the endorsement anymore.
That is not the reaction sound you want to hear from a crowd.
No.
When you're being exposed.
Yeah.
Is gasps of horror.
Right. This is a bad person. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, and
it shows in policy.
Exactly. So it's a continuation of a pattern of shamelessness that allows you to support, things like slaughtering children in Gaza, accepting bribes. It's a character test. And I loved how Abdullah Syed reframed it in the debate the other night about taking all of that outside money, and what that actually indicates is it's that you're a weak candidate. Like, you need all this money to prop you up. Shouldn't you be able to stand on your own? And that is a good, I think, tactic in talking about this kind of thing, because her actions here indicate a level of desperation, or at least shamelessness. And so then you have to ask yourself the question, if they're willing to do that kind of thing to people that they know personally, shouldn't you believe that when they take money that's corrupting, that they're going to do that because it's in their own interests? They're going to do the bidding of those corporations and special interests. I think it's a logical continuation. This Thaddeus Grandma says, Angie Craig was one of the first Democrats to publicly call for Biden to step down after the debate, but that's about the only nice thing I can say about her.
Yeah, that's not ideological.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she's probably like, my ass is on the line. Because isn't she a purple district Democrat? That's how Schumer and the House, or Schumer's been selecting some of these candidates. I'm wondering if we could look up her district to see if she thought that she was in trouble. I guarantee you that's what it was. Purple district, afraid of losing her seat. The only time she sticks her neck out is for her own political power. Yeah, you're right. Purple district. What was it? What did it go in 2024? No problem.
The southern suburbs down to rural communities near Mankato. So yeah, that would be a...
Oh, in a suburban district, shocked that that's the district that Schumer wants.
Precisely, yeah.
A representative from.
Yeah, not the Twin Cities proper, but like Woodbury.
There it goes. Deep purple, Jake from Minneapolis.
Probably fairly wealthy, if imagine the southern suburbs of Twin Cities.
Right. We could we could guess that right off the rip. And she's outraising Peggy Flanagan by a lot, but Peggy is the better candidate. Nick Shirley's father says secondhand info, but many people I know have heard Angie Craig say they are only DFL because she doesn't think the GOP would accept a lesbian.
Okay,
well, a
might
lesbian.
Need to hear more.
I am interested in that. I mean,
but I'd like to hear it sourced
secondhand.
to somebody. Yeah.
But also, like, I'm sorry, Scott Bessent is gay. Maybe a lesbian being a woman is a bigger hurdle, but the leader of the far-right fascist alternative for Deutschland party right now in Germany is a lesbian woman. All right, let's do something else here. Oh, let's do 16 then 17.
I know it took forever and we've moved on, but it was 50% for Kamala, 46.7% for Trump in her district.
Okay, so there you go. Boom. So the Associated Press compiled this data here about grocery prices, specifically about people in cities and what they're paying at the local supermarket. This is just astonishing. Look at this graph. This is, you can see really since 2019, grocery prices that as home food prices in U.S. cities. We're now up since 2019, February was 4.8%. We're up to, 39.2% in June 2026. And this is about the increase in food prices, home food prices, basically, that you would get at the grocery store. And this is for people that live in cities.
Not to make this about Biden again, but like, how was there so much complacency about the state of the economy?
It's astonishing.
It never was fixed either. You can tell. Like, the massive rise between 2021 and 2023 was stopped. But like, look at it continued to rise at a rate that it wasn't rising even prior to that.
Right. And that is when, go to 2023, when you see that increase, it's sort of flatlining, right? But that's when you started to see the real record returns for some of these food processors and these companies, like these meat processors, I should say.
Yeah.
Because they decided that they were just, even though the inflation that had been caused by the supply chain bottlenecks and issues from the COVID-19 pandemic had subsided, they were like, well, there's no price controls and the enforcement is lagging, even though Lena Khan is doing her best. And so why don't we just continuously raise prices and just take home more money? And this is impacting people all across the country, but that is specifically pronounced in cities. And so this is the kind of thing where it's like Republicans are talking about tax cuts. People can't afford their rent and their groceries. It's not about having $1,000 extra in your tax return or whatever and not and having a little bit more change in your pocket. That is not keeping up with the way that prices have increased so dramatically for just basic things like food and shelter. And so that's where Zoran Mamdani's city-run grocery store idea comes in. This is not a new idea. Atlanta has one, and I've been told that Georgia is not a communist utopia. But there are other parts of the country, like I think Kansas City does free buses, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong off the top of my head.
I mean, plenty of other places have done this sort of municipal grocery before too, especially in smaller towns where the only grocery store becomes like a Dollar General and stuff like that. Now it's harder to do at the municipal level, and unless maybe you're New York City, but
yes.
Like ultimately this needs to be government policy.
And by the way, unfortunately, Kansas City returned to bus fares last month. But prior to that, they had a program and they were trying it out, and it was implemented in 2020. But, time for some reactionary discipline on the working class in Kansas City. Either way, these are ideas that are not radical. The establishment just doesn't want it to be normalized by the mayor of the biggest city in the country, which has a population that's larger than a great number of states, and who can act in a role where he's essentially in an executive role. So here is Zoran Mamdani announcing the new details about his administration's plan to open up municipal grocery stores across the city to help bring prices down.
We know that for many New Yorkers, 30% at the grocery store means something very different. Since 2019, food prices have soared at grocery stores around the country by roughly 30%, in fact. Talk to shoppers around the city, and you'll often hear the same frustration. Wages have not kept up. Making matters even worse, some corporations have built out technology that allows for something called surveillance pricing, collecting personal data to charge some people more than others for the same carton of eggs, for the same gallon of milk. All of this leaves too many New Yorkers feeling like groceries are out of reach. And that is frankly unacceptable, which is why city government is stepping in to make people's lives more affordable. Today, I am proud to announce a collection of essential staples that will be predictably 30% cheaper at all 5 of our city-run grocery stores. This core set of goods will include all fresh produce, meat, and seafood, along with 20 other essential items like cheese, milk, and bread. Here's how it will work. Once a month, our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last for the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuations nor sticker shock at the checkout line. Not for our seniors living on fixed incomes, nor for the parents who rely on a regular supply of apple slices to keep toddler tantrums at bay. Now, can we all see this incredible example of produce in my hand? Now, you will see these plantains here. So for anyone wondering how much these beautiful plantains might cost, you can use this QR code or head to grocery.nyc to access our policy report. I'm going to demonstrate exactly what that means.
Shout out to Julie Sue
Ladies and
back
gentlemen,
there.
the QR code does work. You can see this here. There you can learn more about our city-owned grocery store program, including the 30% discount. 30% off adds up.
So now we have Zoran Mamdani, who has balanced the budget. He has started the universal child care program that he ran on. He has frozen the rent for 1 million rent-stabilized tenants. He has taxed the rich. He's pissed off Ken Griffin. He's sent a horde of leftists after Ken Griffin.
Stalked him like a hitman.
By doxing him in front of his second home on Central Park that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean...
Yeah, but are the buses free and is Netanyahu in jail?
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Not yet.
Exactly.
Not yet. Right. So we're like basically on campaign promises, on the central ones. We're still waiting on the free bus pilot program. But
I don't know who thought he could accomplish that in 6 months.
But everything else is accomplished, though.
I know. He went in order of difficulty, I think.
Yes, honestly. And because there's actually a lot of literature too on how free buses make it run on time more. It's more efficient, basically, lessens traffic time, and is actually cheaper than enforcing the fare. So that, I think you're right, in terms of order of difficulty, that might be the more easy one to achieve. But what's exciting about this is that it's finally underway, these 5 city-owned grocery stores offering this 30% discount, which is really calculated based on the prices, as he mentions, at the current moment. So it's not going to be essentially static. But this is the argument for, say, the public option in healthcare. Right? Mm-hmm. It's about creating a public, a competitive marketplace, right, for to compete with private industry that, when left unabated, without some sort of public competitor, can set prices and gouge people like we just saw in that chart without any recourse. Now, I believe that many parts of our economy should be socialized and should be outside of private industry. Our healthcare is one of them. But that is the logic here, is that with this competition, but cost of living is the #1 driver in inequality in this country. When cost of living is, having this is going to really make an impact. And what is upsetting so many, corporatists is that they will have to compete fairly with the city-run grocery stores, and perhaps they can't gouge people in the way that they have been anymore.
I mean, it's funny, the arguments, they vary very widely. It's at one time you'll see, well, this will never work. It's going to be a money suck. And at which point I'll say, like, we're already subsidizing bodegas and all that stuff to try to get them to feed people healthily, and they failed at it. So yeah, there's going to be some money taken from the extreme wealthy people to pay for food one way or the other. This is a better way to do it than what, like, a lot of the grocery type folks who are complaining about this saying, you're just going to run us out of business. Well, you failed. And you failed. You don't get to run a shitty business that leaves food deserts. We're going to fix that. And also, now the problem is it's too good. It's too competitive. It's going to drive places out of business. Well, sorry. I guess the government's too good.
I guess so. And when they're not giving food away for free, by the way, they are selling it. They're just selling it at non-price gouging prices. So, like, what you're saying is true, Matt. I mean, perhaps the government will have to, like, invest early on, but it's meant to operate not at a profit and still being able to, like, fund the salaries of the employees that work at these city-owned grocery stores as well. They're just not taking so much off the top like the chains do in the rest of the city. And that's the same logic as to why they weren't putting grocery stores in areas that really need them. Like, that's a food desert because it's not profitable enough. It's not worth their investment to put a grocery store in this neighborhood. It's the same, by the way. Target and all these other corporations were blaming crime for why they were shutting down stores that they had opened, and it was because they had miscalculated and there wasn't enough food traffic. And, like, Amazon is eating the lunch of stores like this right now in terms of being able to, like, because they're so monopolistic, have really competitive prices with some of these superstores, and they don't need as many storefronts anymore, and they miscalculated and they blamed crime, and idiots ate it up. So, like, they are going to be forced to now be competitive with the city that actually cares about feeding people.
Well, and, like, what type of crime are they doing? Like, I saw one of these grocery store guys, owners, talking about, like, well, he never came to us and asked what we could do together. It's like, why do you need the government to do it? This is the free market, I thought. If you're so good without, like, why can't you do this without subsidies? They can't. This doesn't work. And you'll hear this from all the fucking econ guys who think they're genius libertarian economics majors that actually grocery stores don't even make that much profit. Yeah, they can't make profit even with the subsidies. So guess what? Capitalists can't be trusted to run grocery stores.
Exactly. Ryan from Santa Monica, I've been poor and reliant on civic buses my entire adult life, and there have been times when I didn't have enough money to take the bus home from work. Fortunately, there were drivers who let it pass, one saying they're a public service paid by taxes, buses should be free. What right-wingers don't understand is doing this helps business because it gives workers ways to get to work. Exactly. Graham Page, famously, every grocery store is cheap like Aldi. There are no other options like Whole Foods and Erewhon. That's the LA one, and I can never pronounce Erewhon.
Yeah, the ridiculously expensive one.
Yes. Spaghetti Brains, just like the minimum wage debate, if a company can't afford to pay their employees, go out of business then. Good.
Yeah.
If the grocery stores can't compete with city-run stores, they sound an awful lot like the market decided get dead. Well, I mean, that's part of what socializing the economy does to actually improve the health of the market. Parasitic companies that don't deserve to be around and paying their workers in a way that stimulates the economy so that they have more money in their pocket will go out of business. And, like, that's how that's going to work. It makes the economy more efficient, frankly.
There should be a minimum percentage a company has to spend on labor.
That's exactly right.
You don't have a right to run a shitty business. And, like, I saw some people complaining about the dollar buses in Brooklyn. There might have some trouble because of faster bus service down Flatbush. And I'm sorry, that is the right solution. Like these things that serve as like sort of private free market band-aids, they will get replaced.
Yep.
It's like I support the state controlling who gets to sell weed. I don't think it should be whoever. I think it's good that there should be licenses. Now that should be done equitably and with an eye to like previous injustice and which communities were harmed by that. But I'm not a libertarian about any of this stuff.
Gulf Coast Grid, I can't remember where, but there's a Republican county that has a county-run grocery store. I mean, New Hampshire and which New England?
Minnesota.
Yeah,
and New Hampshire.
New Hampshire's the New England state that has city-run or state-run liquor stores. Right. Really hard to use a fake ID there.
A Republican family drove me there many times to shop at the state-run liquor store.
Because it was cheaper. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
The Defense Commissary Agency. Federal government runs over 200 fully government-owned supermarkets on military bases worldwide.
That's how the gas stations, the PX, which is their Walmart, the commissary, all of it. I mean, everything about the military is socialism.
Down to the free college.
And the murdering.
And the that's the part we're into.
Tens of millions. What did Steve Miller say? Socialism killed tens of millions of people
right.
in the previous century.
Exactly. And he was outwoking us. He was referring to the U.S. military.
Yeah.
Gonna read some IMs and we'll get out of here, folks. Molotov Burrito, why does today's show feel like a more accurate reminder of how despicable politicians are than usual? I guess it just turned out that way.
Is it? I mean, the Minnesota thing is crazy. That guy, that's one of the most horrifying things that's happened. To at least directed at a politician. I mean, crazy. Like a guy he killed a woman. Like another lawmaker died. It wasn't just like the attempted homicide, Hoffman and his wife. The guy went on to murder another lady and a lawmaker. I forget her name, but to then try to get his endorsement as he's recovering in a way that completely insults him. That is, I'd say, bad politicking.
Annoying gay guy says, Emma, I have a real bone to pick with you. Last week you retweeted the jingle I wrote for Third Way, and your followers did not appreciate my singing voice. Wait, that's you? Hold on. We have a little bit of time, and I want to find this because this made me laugh. I'm finding it.
While you're looking, Melissa Hortman was her name.
Melissa Hortman. That's there right. You go. Maybe it's too far down. God, I use Twitter too much. Oh, here it is. Charles R. Davis. Okay, so you are an IMer. This is a very funny account on Twitter who has good politics. I've been enjoying your posts at Charzar Davis, I think. Charzar Davis. You wrote this jingle. Give a shout out here for Third Way. And I hope that they use it in the way that our audience funds or creates our Funhouse song and all that kind of stuff. Perhaps Charles, Third Way, and Neeratan want to adopt your new jingle.
The corporations are my best friends. The artificial intelligence is my boyfriend. I don't want anything to change. I just want things to stay the same. The corporations are my best.
I don't know if you have a future in singing, but I did quite enjoy that.
That is Emma's sense of humor for sure.
I was fucking dancing in my room to that. Doing the TikTok dance, you know? Just throwing dice, I think. Right? What people don't know about me is I'm maybe the worst dancer on the planet. It's not for me.
I don't know if anybody's shocked.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's like I am way too self-conscious to like be able to move even when drinking. It's like, this is too much self-expression for me. I'm not here for that. All right, 5 more and we'll get out of here. Gulf Coast Grit. The voice is fine compared to Lara Trump. Michael Sarah Palin. Now that was grandma. Official Gen X. Utah has state-run liquor stores as well as municipal water and power throughout the state. It's actually the most socialist state in the union, but don't tell them because they'll ruin it if they knew.
Well, they're a little more fascist because I think isn't their beer 3.2% legally?
Yes, yeah.
The hallmark of fascism.
They don't.
The first thing Hitler did was go to the beer hall and say nothing over 3.2%.
I was at a bar in Utah one time and I asked like the bartender for clarity. I was like, when is like last call? Like, can we not drink past 11? And she was like offended, right? And I was like clearly in town to ski, like an idiot, like a real asshole, being like, do you guys even drink here? But they do water it down. I mean, I've seen that in Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. What?
Near beer.
Yeah.
Near beer hall putsch is what I call it. Fascism.
Agree. This guy's all right says, damn, this really is a pro-killing podcast. Yes. And the final IM of the day. Kowalski from Nebraska. Grocery stores are much like meat packing plants and food processing plants. They are mature businesses. There's no more room for growth or development. If you can neither improve a product nor make it cheaper, then it is effectively a public good now. Therefore, you cannot make profit off of it without essentially taxing the consumer, which a private business cannot do, because that is taxation without the consent of the customer. If a municipal grocery buys produce at cost and sells that produce at enough to cover its overhead and its employees and to restock the shelves, that is the normal in stage of providing a public good. That isn't even socialism. That is like the most basic understanding of a capitalist mode of production. There you go, Kowalski.
But what about the Constitution? That said
Exactly.
that all that we can do is like make sure that Southerners can have slaves.
All right, guys. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much. We will wrap up now. We'll be back tomorrow. Sam will be back on Friday. Tomorrow, we have a very special in-studio guest that I think everyone's going to be quite excited about. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive